Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio, and it's March 9, 2023, and a big happy birthday to my son, Ben, today. Okay, and it's nice to be here with you. I'm Larry Jacobs. We got a good show for you today with my good friend, Jay Litman. Jay is a school architect. He owns Litman Architecture Educational Consulting Group. He's a school reformer, but he does it through architecture and learning space design. Okay, we're going to have a great conversation with Jay today about what he calls fourth-generation schools. And we'll learn a little bit about his background and all we're doing, and about what he's calling a new programming DNA for that fourth-generation school. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, Jay is available to you. Well, let him give you his email, but it's Litman Architecture Education Consulting Group in Rhode Island. We're going to archive the show at ace-ed.org. Everything we do over there at ace-ed.org, which is the home website of our American Consortium for Equity in Education, is free for educators. So go over and subscribe to our magazine, Equity and Access. Look at all the websites we do and all the information we give about equity in education pre-K-12. All right, ace-ed.org. Without further ado, the one, the only, my good friend, Jay Litman. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm fine. Was that introduction good? I don't have a fanfare for you.
Boy, I know. I'm impressed. I didn't know I had all that under me.
I turned down. John Lennon wanted to be on the show today, but I turned it down because you wanted to be on the show too. So
I'm doubly impressed.
There you go. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Talk to me, my friend. You've been with Fielding International for a long time. You just split off to start Litman Architecture Educational Consulting Group. Talk about that. What are you planning to do with your company? And how do you want schools to get involved with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I've been working with Prakash, Nair, and Randy Fielding for, 15 to 18 years. It's currently called Fielding International. And, 18 years 18 years is a long time. And in that time, what attracted me originally was the whole notion that schools as they are existing in the world now haven't changed. They're basically designed in the first industrial revolution and maybe into the second. And it kind of stopped. Yeah, except for technology, It's been the same thing, which is, the teacher is the instructor, and the students are the vessels that get filled, or the kids who listen and take their tests. And that's called hierarchical learning, where there's a teacher at the top of the pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid is all the students, and there's nothing in between. And we're in a networked world now, and I'll talk about it in a minute if you want, but we are in the fourth industrial revolution. It's already started. And I don't know for everyone listening if they understand, and I don't know if you want me to explain what the other revolutions were.
Just give a brief preface what you're talking. Yeah, just get into it just quickly do that.
Sure.
And talk about this fourth revolution that you're talking about, fourth generation.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really quickly, the first industrial revolution, 1780 to 1840, that's the development of water-powered mills, towns, the rise of the factories, and the kind of like systematic bringing in of people from the countryside and forming bigger and bigger cities and villages around these giant mills. So they went from the mills in the first industrial revolution really into factories in the second industrial revolution, which was also known as the technological revolution, which was like 1870, so right after the Civil War to right at the start of World War I. And really, Horace Mann started this system of we have people coming into factories that can't read, they can't write, they can't read signs, they can't take directions, and they have no system other than the farm system. And the factory system is orderly, everyone's in a straight line, everybody obeys, they listen to the foreman, and the model of schools was built on that, on this kind of like, command system. And Horace Mann took lessons from the Prussian military. And the thing that a lot of people don't even know, that Maria Montessori that we say today is kind of like the free love, everyone's kind of doing their own thing in schools. It started as this, on keeping kids on a single task until they mastered it, which is how you master assemblage tasks in a factory. Everything was focused on the factory, and people forgot about that. But the core of a school design is it went even through the third industrial revolution, which we know as baby boomers is the digital revolution, which came from about early 1950s through probably it kind of peaked out in the end of the 1990s. And we've been building schools from, the 50s onward, and most of our schools are in that stock. They're 60 to 70 years old now. Are based on the box that is the self-contained school with the teacher at the front as the instructor. The kids are in that room all day long. And even if you're in a math class in high school, you're still in a room with the teacher at the front. There's no way to get out of the box. And, of course, you organize boxes around hallways, and all these super concentrations of kids have to get out of those hallways, down stairways, and out of the building. Every school built, if you think about it, and this is what we call the sort of morphology of a school, the shape that's based on that idea, they're all like long box cars connected with little knuckles to get you in and out and circulate. It's all about circulation. And even the teachers that put the kids into, if you remember, you have your desk on the floor, they put a little marker around the front leg of the desk. Everyone's desk in the morning, you had to align it in front. Everyone's in a line, and it's been shown through many, many different school districts around the country that was codified by the 1920s as a very efficient graphic way to see who's in class and who is not. It has nothing to do with education. It has everything to do with, you look at your grid, you got a name in every grid, you see where the hole is in the grid, you know who's not there. That's what it's about. That's what it's really about. So schools are based on efficiency, basically, over effectiveness. It's not about what you're learning, the quality of what you're learning, and how you're learning it. It's about, are you present and as a teacher sitting there doing their job? Forget about everything else. And yes, teachers are better than that, and they work against the system. And we've created things in our schools now like blended learning. Teachers are bringing in their own furniture. You go out in the hallways, and there's desks and chairs and little groupings, but you can't do it in the room. But we still build, I'm banging my fist right now as I'm talking, you still build the exact same way.
Don't let your blood pressure go up. Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, I mentioned in an article that just appeared in Education Reimagined, and I'll send you a copy today if you want to kind of cross-post it to this. But, I mean, there's a wonderful new school built in Rhode Island, in East Providence, $190 million high school. It's got every bell and whistle you can think of, and that's what it's about, bells and whistles. It's about the same hierarchical learning. They spent all this money, and our schools, it's a beautiful school architecturally. Instead of a hallway, it's almost like a mall concourse now. But the teachers are still in boxes. Everyone is still doing the same thing. And, in fact, I heard the other day that, and they still put lockers on the walls. Without thinking, kids don't use lockers anymore. And I've heard that all the lockers are empty in that school because kids.
What are kids doing? Actually, I didn't know that. What are kids? That's first I've heard that one. What are kids doing with their coat and stuff, or do they just wear it all day?
They wear it. Very few kids use lockers anymore. We haven't had lockers in our schools for years now. I mean, actually, a lot of the schools in Europe, they actually have a coat check, and you go into the school like the ones that I did in Tartarstan in the city of Kazan.
Yeah.
On 2 international school campuses there. You go into school, and you either have a wardrobe room, you hang up your stuff, you take your street shoes off, you put your school shoes on, because of course you don't want mud and ice and dirt and everything. It's very nice. It's very humane. The problem is in American schools we don't. And so what they do is they walk around the school in their shoes. They keep their coats with them. They stuff them in their backpacks. They wrap them around their waists. And the reason is because the school is not based on a learning community. It's based on a room. You could have your math room in one end of the school and have to walk a quarter mile to get to the other end of the school because there's over 2,000 students in the school. And so it's like you would never be able to get back and forth to your class as the bells ring, as the bell tolls.
Remember those days.
I'm just saying, my community in Barrington, Rhode Island, put up a middle school, and even though they're trying really hard to break through the core DNA, and that's why I call it the DNA, because you can't shake DNA. The DNA is still based on the idea that there's a teacher in a classroom, and they own the classroom. And the students go into the teacher's space, not their space, the teacher's space. So if you just say, okay, stop all that for, oh yeah, but it's true. I mean, if you want the kid to feel like they own some of their education, you walk into the teacher's classroom. We did this in Boulder, Colorado, at Centaurus High School back in 2015 and 16, where we tried to create a new model for them to renovate their school. And you walk into a classroom, and I thought it was cool when I was a kid. My teacher loved science in 6th grade, so they had lots of science stuff up, and they had fetuses of different animals in jars, and they had all kinds of charts on the wall. In Boulder, I remember specifically as a teacher, loved guitars. He loved Jimi Hendrix. The room was an homage to Jimi Hendrix, and I love Jimi Hendrix, so it's great. But I mean, you're not in your room; you're in that teacher's world.
Your point is well taken. We're always talking about student voice and everything, but you walk into the teacher's room. That's a very interesting point. The other point that I like a lot of the things you said, but the other point that I liked, schools were developed to create people to go to work. Okay, and so the factory system you mentioned and all that, et cetera. And if you go into a company, I'll just use Google or something as an example, there's not even offices, there's not cubicles anymore. People are just sitting at tables wherever they want. They're schlepping around and all that sort of thing. Point being, the workplace has changed. And point being, now it's even more so because since the pandemic, it's been remote, which means it's literally your space. Okay, and most companies are struggling with bringing people back to work. Okay, but my point of that is that schools have to reflect that. Okay, they're training people to go into the big world as adults. We call it being a college and career ready, certainly career ready. Okay, but if we don't reflect the real world in the school and the world that these kids are going into, okay, that creates a problem. Okay, and I might add for colleges as well. Okay, and although we're talking K-12 here, my point is what you're saying is accurate. We have to look at this, and one of the things I have to say is that Jay is trained as an architect. He works on schools, so and Jay, talk about this for a second. You really know about education. You're not just talking about the structural aspect of a school. You're talking about, and this is very key, the learning aspect of the environment the kids are in. Okay, and that has to do with you understanding the pedagogy behind it and how something's going to be taught and how it all works. It's a very interesting. A lot of people don't understand this. The positioning of a school architect has to understand. Okay, what's going to go in school, just like somebody designing a hospital has to understand medical needs before they design the hospital. It's not just bricks and mortar. All right, and you can go on that rant if you want, okay? But the point is you want to change the DNA. Let me get back to your thing. You want to change the DNA, but teachers are still trained the same way. So how do you change the DNA as you talk to people about redesigning their school? Their learning experience.
Well, I think
put it that way.
Right. That's a great question, and that's what makes the new model school succeed or fail. Because as I've said for many years, people are sick of hearing me saying it. I always use the whole metaphor of the Pony Express gets helicopters, and they bring in the helicopters, they land them. Everyone knows how to ride a horse. No one knows what a helicopter is, but the well-meaning people go, you can fly across the valley now. You don't have to wait 3 days. You can fly in 25 minutes. And they come back 3 weeks later and it's a failure because they're sitting there with their horses tied up to the helicopters trying to drag it. And you go, no. It's a miracle of human flight. And you explain Bernoulli's principle and engineering and how to run an engine and, navigation. And that's our problem. We give teachers these incredible spaces. And I know one well-meaning group just did it to another school up in Rhode Island, a middle school. It wasn't us, wasn't me. And they made a beautiful space out of it, and they tried to make it look like one of our schools. And it failed because the teachers have no training. It's just the Pony Express gets helicopters. And so what we found over the years is, we were doing these really beautiful schools all around the world, and there was always a really big period of time if you had a really good head of school that really understood what they needed to do with the teachers ahead of time. So as a good example, and again, we're going to be talking all about this at the A4LE Northeast Regional Conference in Philly on April 29th. when we talk about this new DNA and about fourth generation schools and what it all means, we realize that without the training, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And the reason is that the teachers have no experience in sharing spaces. They have no experience in, kind of shifting a little bit. You don't give up instruction, obviously. You need instruction. But you also have to balance that with something called mentoring. Because if you want the students to have agency and feel like they have ownership in the space, there's two big radical things that happen in a learning community. And I should just say for a second, learning community is, and we're doing this at Garden City in Cranston, Rhode Island. We're building a new 86,000 square foot. And this is me still as the architect of record. I still have a relationship with Building International while these projects get completed, because I'm the stamping architect and the head of the design team for this. But it's, and we do these schools actually all over the United States. We try to, and all over the world. Cranston's an important project because everyone in the administration there, that's, the head of capital projects and all, they're building on what we did. As you remember, we've talked about Eden Park, which is now being expanded for the whole school as well. But this is a brand new, clean sheet school where you close your eyes and you say, there is no Horace Mann school. It's a learning community. So there's 5 learning communities in a school holding 575 students. And those communities are, they're mixed age, starting lower teams to upper teams. The teachers, and there's a collection of smaller learning studios. You don't need a 900 or an 850 square foot classroom because the teacher's not in the room all day anymore and doing everything. So if you don't have corridors, then the rooms that go down to 650 square feet or 700 square feet, or, in some schools we can pull it down to 550 square feet. They become the spaces where instruction can happen, but there are no lining up of desks in those rooms. The rooms are rich technologically. They have full wall screens. They have really great sound and acoustics. They have telecoil loops in the floor for kids that are hearing impaired. And remember, now we're talking about equity in education. Our schools don't talk about that, and we do, and you know why? Because I've got a hearing impaired child in my family that's how I got into this. But there's a huge paradigm shift when you do that, because all of the extra space, you would call it, is not extra space. It's valuable space. It becomes the learning commons that all these rooms, which include small group rooms, some seminar spaces, maybe some resource rooms, and then they're surrounded by this learning commons. The learning commons has areas for group research, presentation, private reflection, and what happens there is that the teachers, and this is very similar to Kunskapsskolan, the charter school group in Sweden, they do it too. So we know we're not alone, and it's done all over the world too. But it's in little tiny bonfires all over the world. It's not really caught on yet, but it's growing rapidly. And so why Cranston is important is because it's a typical American, small city system. It's got 22 to 24 public schools, middle schools, high schools, and elementary schools. Nothing, they're not sitting on top of like a huge research center or something. It's a regular American city system, and they're building completely new, one-of-a-kind, clean sheet school. The lessons learned are built on from our other schools, and especially in this community from Eden Park. The teachers, this is going to blow some people's minds, the teachers do not own a classroom. The group of teachers that are in the learning community of that particular group, and like at Eden Park, it's a third, fourth, and fifth grade. At Garden City, there's a pre-K and a K, and then a first and second, and a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth, because we find multi-age works better as well, when they work together in teams when they get out of the small rooms. The teachers don't own the classroom. They own the 5 or 6 learning studios and all the other facilities that are there, and they have their own workroom, not a desk in the classroom. They may have a podium or a place they can put their things that they can move from room to room, but they can be in like Studio B on Tuesday, and that same teacher might be on Studio, D on Thursday and Friday, and back on Monday it'll be in B. And why? It's because there's certain features in every room, and they all decide as a team. So what they're doing now is they're collaborating on the education in the space. And that means that they are now learning the skills that the students have to observe. If you tell your students it's the 21st century, you have to learn how to collaborate, and all your teachers are in their rooms, what does that mean? It's nothing. So, and in fact, it was so successful at Eden Park that the other side of Eden Park is about to start construction. And the teachers at a review that we had, it was like, we'll say that there's six classrooms on that wing, all right? I think there's 8 classrooms in that wing, but they said, we don't want 8 learning studios. We want 7, and take the extra classroom and make that a bigger learning commons. And we said, really? You really want to do that? And they said, yes, because we don't want new teachers coming in to think they own a classroom. We want them to be able to move around. So one of those classes will always take place in each, planning period during the day in the commons only, and then maybe some of the small group rooms. And any teacher you ask over at Eden Park, would you go back to the old system? Every answer for every teacher, and I'm not kidding about this, says, I will quit. I will resign from teaching. I never want to go back to that. It's like, would you want to crank the car up in the morning? Would you rather push a button to make the car start? Nobody wants to use the crank, and nobody wants to do this. So going back to Garden City, the whole school is based on this new model, which means the shape of the school is different. The layout on the site is different. For architects who might start freaking out and their head catches fire that they can't use the model we've all used through all of our adult lives designing schools, you have a design opportunity now to do something that you've never had to do before, which is actually design the school for the child and design the school for the teacher. The teachers that are teaching now are the millennials. They're not the people who grew up in 1940 or 50 or 60. These are the kids who grew up in the 1990s. I mean, my oldest is 37. That's like the average age of an American teacher in a school. I have plenty of nieces who teach. And actually, I now have a nephew who teaches English in high school. That's the generation of teachers. They don't want to be in an old-fashioned building anymore either. So we just see this as we're at the cusp period. And, by the way, when we said the Fourth Industrial Revolution, if any of your listeners watch, read like MIT Technology Review or watch, CNN or BBC Technology, the stuff that's going on in the industry now is mind-shattering. Because AI is like roughing up the entire graphic design and illustration industry. One of my sons is an illustrator. He's talking with his friends every single day about this, and there's like issues with, intellectual property and where they're pulling the information from, but also it's changing advertising overnight as much as Photoshop did in the 90s.
So let me ask you this, and this is key. So when you're president of your company now, okay, you own your Litman architecture, okay, all right, so you're going to go in and you're going to talk to a school board, a superintendent, what I assume, okay, and when you talk to them about this, okay, how do you start with that? Because that's really key. I mean, you're asking them to really think very, very differently about the way things are, okay, and I don't know how to phrase the question, but really, what's the best place to start in as an architect to explain to people that this is a real sea change out there? It ain't your daddy's Oldsmobile anymore, to show my age there.
Well, I'll tell you, I can say it like this: they are far and few between to have the head of a capital projects department in a big school department, or a superintendent, or sometimes it's a group of teachers, and they know change is really hard to come by. So what has happened
is always hard.
It's always hard, and so I mean, Ed Collins in Cranston has said many times, that we struggle to get the school built because there's so many new things we've never done before, and you got to hand it to them. He wants to do it, and he sticks by it, and he just says, these are hard projects. If they were easy, everybody would do them, and they're not. They're very hard. But every time you have a win, you have a new example. So, for instance, in Rhode Island here, and I'll use it just because it's a great laboratory since it's such a small state. Change can happen on a dime here when it does happen. We have Eden Park, the one and only school project in the entire state. It's only 12,000 square feet because it was, an experimental Pathfinder project. And they get visitors all the time. And unfortunately, most of them don't take away what they need to take away. They see the colors.
That was actually going to be my question. Yeah. Wait a minute. Hold on. What are the questions when other people come and visit? Okay. What are the questions you hear from those people as they look at Eden Park? They must go, well, this is different. Does this actually work? What are the questions that you hear?
Well, if they're an educator, first thing they want to know
that's what
is,
I'm thinking of. Yeah.
What did you do? What did you do to the kids? Because they seem to be completely riveted on all the tasks that they're doing. And we say, well, they're their tasks. And then they go, what do you mean? And you start to explain it, and you see the light go on. The director of education for Rhode Island, Angelica, now I'm going to not remember her whole name, but anyway, so she came to Eden Park about a year ago. She finally got there. She's very busy. There's lots of other big issues in Rhode Island as well as in most school districts, but she finally had her team bring her there, and she immediately noticed that there were kids in multiple grades in this learning community, and that surprised her. And then she started talking to some of them and realized that they had a way of talking to adults that she has not seen in schools before, and they even asked her to help them with projects. And then she saw all the teachers were running around outside of their rooms talking to teams of students because, I've mentioned this before. The other thing that educators notice is that if you're in a room with 25 students, it's a 1 in 25 ratio, and unions, dictate you can't go above certain ones. They have strikes over this. It's a 21 students, it's a 23 students. When you're in a learning community, you may have your whole team, your whole group, and that, again, dictated by unions. It could be anywhere from 20 to 25, usually. Sometimes it's more, but not. But once you give the students, you wind them up, you get them going for what they need to do for that day, whatever teams they have, whether they're singles or they're working in groups of 3 and 4, and they go out into the learning commons. Some stay in the classroom. Some go out in the learning commons because of, just distribution or small group rooms. The teachers then leave the rooms because everything is, transparent. You can see where everyone is most of the time. And they start working with 3 students, 5 students, 2 students, 1 student. You have a student-teacher ratio now in a public school that's better than a private school. I mean, where are you going to get a one-on-one relationship or even have the opportunity to do that? You couldn't, or you'd stigmatize the student. Here you're going from group to group or student to 5 students to 3 students. So she saw that, and she looked around and she said, I don't know how you did it, but you did it. I've never seen this work before. And again, we go back to the bigger question you asked me is how do you train the teachers?
Well,
right?
but I got to say something, okay? And this is key, and this is something we've always talked about. If you build a good, and think of your house, everybody. If you build a good environment, knowing education as the background, you're going to have a much better thing at the end. Okay, it's just so obvious. Okay, the more comfortable the kids are in this world we live in today, the better off they're going to be. And by the way, Jay, it's Angelica Infante Green.
That's it. I knew Green was the
state commissioner. I just looked it up. But I actually have had her on the show. She's very nice. She's very nice.
Yeah, she's great. And she got it instantly. The minute she saw it, and I was going to say,
smart lady.
There's 2 compound questions: is how do you get other school districts to buy into this? And the question is, the answer is complex because you can't get someone and sell it. They have to see it. And the way
that's a good point.
Me and my partners at FI have done over the years is we lecture a lot, we speak a lot, we write a lot, and we try to publish a lot. And in the end, if you don't go to the school and see it, you don't get it. And you have to be an educator to get it. School committees go to the school and they see beautiful colors, nice lighting. They might see better sound than they've heard. And they go, well, we got to put better sound in. We have to I love the cream color and the orange. Let's make our schools look like that. If that was the scheme in that particular school, whatever it is. It's like, no, that's not it. And, the director of facilities in Cranston sees these groups come through. We had Providence come through not long ago. And he said, this doesn't work unless you change the teachers. And they didn't understand what he meant.
Wow.
And it is. We discovered that we don't have a dedicated team of educators that understand how these schools work and know the tasks that they have to train the teachers in. It won't work. So, for instance, at Garden City, the teacher, we demolished the whole school on the site. Cranston is a built-out city. You can't, shift people around. We had to go to a school they had mothballed, put the students in there for 18 months while we build a new school.
Well,
in those 18 months, the teachers are being intensively trained by, Fielding International team of educators. And because you've had, one of my colleagues, Jill Akers, on many times.
Sure.
Jill, when she was with us, before she left to go to VS, as their, international educator, she worked intensively at all the schools I was working on and some of the other studios as well. And, when we build a team of educators, and obviously my new practice, I am now interviewing educators because I know that if you have a consulting group that has educators, if you don't have the change management portion of it down, which is educators that know the tasks they need to do to teach these teachers, it doesn't work. So how do you convince these school districts? We, over the years, and it's already happened with me, even in my new practice, they call you and they say, we saw what you did at so-and-so, and we want that to happen here. Can you explain what that's about? And when you do, they say, that's what we want to do. I mean, another good example of a client that, and these are like the bonfires that are sitting in the woods, right? There's Cranston is here. I've worked for years with Chappaqua School District, in Westchester County in New York. And, we recently, about a year and a half or two ago, we completed a large scale renovation, building a new STEAM addition to their high school, reshaping 40,000 square feet of their high school into 4 learning communities, making changes to all their elementary schools and all their middle schools. And when I send you this link to this article, you'll see some Chappaqua pictures in it, as well as Eden Park. But to show that at the high school level, it works as well as it works in the elementary school. It's not age specific. You get more sophisticated spaces, obviously, when you have students that are a little more mature, they can go longer distances, they're more independent, and especially they're more independent if they started in a school like Eden Park and they've worked their way through the system. So in Chappaqua, we have a little bit of a difference because it's a big enough school district, and in terms of all the expertise they have, where they actually have an assistant superintendent there who has been training the teachers, and
really?
and it worked. It works on that school should work on the day that you move in. If you have not trained the teachers for the entire time of construction, it will not work. And we tell them from the start, don't bother. Don't do it. Do whatever you're used to, but if you want to make change, it's not architecture. It's a very sophisticated educational change management system. And here's the last piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, we got about 3 minutes left, buddy.
Well, I'm just going to use the word.
My good
Everyone
friend.
knows what the word is. That is educational specifications. And most school district educational specifications are based on how many square foot per student, and that's how you get how big all the spaces are. And over the years, we've changed that, and especially in Cranston's master plan, we changed it so they're based on learning patterns, and they're based on qualities of spaces. So you don't say a classroom is this big. You say it's a learning community model, it's a learning studio, and these are the things that happen. And you basically have to rewrite the entire narrative of how all the parts and pieces work together. It's like, the schematic on an internal combustion engine is one thing. The schematics on an electric engine in a wheelbase for a Tesla is something very different. So we've built the new Tesla of schools, and that means you have to rebuild the schematic on how it works. That's your ed spec. It makes it more fun, too. And we could go on for hours, or they can just listen to all your other podcasts, and they'll learn, too, right?
They will indeed. We're going to do more together. And by the way, before I forget, if you want to do some articles for us for our magazine about learning spaces and equity, you know you're always invited.
Okay, I got some right on the burner here.
Come to us,
Sure.
my friend. Come to us. Jay, it's great having you on, my buddy, old buddy. Okay, we'll do
It's
more
always
together,
a pleasure,
I promise.
Larry.
Okay,
And
it is,
know,
truly.
the last plug is I'm speaking in Philly. You're from Philly. You should come down to Philly at the end of April.
I saw that. Where was the meeting, by the way?
It's going to be at the the Westin down on 17th and Market, or 17th and Chestnut.
And actually, you bring up a good point just before we go. Who's going to be there? Is it going to be architects, school designers? Is it going to be superintendents?
Well, yeah. Well, it's a yes
there?
to everything. It's the Association for Learning Environments, as you know, and everyone comes. Facility people, educators, architects, writers, technologists, everyone's going to be there. And it's a Northeast Regional Conference, but Northeast is a very big place. So it's going to be a fairly big, and then this year's national conference will be in Chicago. I forget if it's in September or October. So it's great to go. And so but if you want to hear someone talk with a Philadelphia accent, come on down.
All I got to do is play my show back. That's us. Jay's from Philly too.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
This is great, man. Okay, we'll be in touch, but please, the articles. That's a sincere invite.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
I'll give you a sincere article.
Thanks, pal.
Take it easy.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Bye. Jay Litman, everybody, and I want to give you. I meant to ask him. Darn it. Okay, hold on a second. Well, I'm going to put it up on the screen. I have to put a way to get in touch with Jay, okay? And I forgot to do that, so I'm going to make sure I get that up there. All right, we'll archive at ace-ed.org, see everything we do. Over there, it's all free for educators. Thank you, Jay Litman. I'm Larry Jacobs, Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. Thanks for listening.